Our business is already consumed with so many unpredictable things. And the last thing you want to do for your business is to not take control of things that you could control, because then you're just adding to that unpredictability.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to another Real Estate First Friday. My name is Matthew Hodge, Executive Vice President here at LPT Realty, joined by my co-EVP, Luis Fermin.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully the glare's not too bad back there.
Yeah,
It's
it looks like it. It
reflection
looks
of
like it's bright. We got to try to check it out. We are traveling today, so we are not in studio. We are actually in Sailfish, which is in Stuart, Florida, and we are here for the executive meeting that has started on Monday and has rolled through all the way to today. So today is our final day for that. But the weather is beautiful, guys. So that is fantastic. But we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. We talk about a lot of things that are required for you to have a consistent, more predictable business. There are things that you cannot control, like what happens with interest rates and what happens with buyer sentiments and all those things that can control kind of overall transactions. But you can control your functions, and those things have to be done consistently. When you do that, your business starts to stabilize. And so we talk about all the different methods that you can do that. And one of the things that is super important is CRM hygiene. And how do you do that on a consistent basis so that you understand how to extract business from your CRM? Because it is a process, it is a formula. And if you do that well, it really allows you to go at any point to do more of any particular function if business starts to slow down. So, hey, if I go do ratchet up more phone calls, if I do more so-and-so, then that translates into more business. But if you don't have an organized list of people to call or understand where they are in that status, then you're going to do a lot more work to try to figure out what levers to pull. So with that being said, I want to bring in our special guest.
Yeah, and before we do that, I mean, our business is already consumed with so many unpredictable things. And the last thing you want to do for your business is to not take control of things that you could control, because then you're just adding to that unpredictability. And when you are not able to take control of those pieces, then it's going to reduce your ability to go out there and perform at a high level. So with that, let's bring in Jamie, who's our special guest here today.
Hey
Good
guys,
morning,
thank you
Jamie.
so much for having me.
Of course. I think we're actually pretty close to your neck of the woods, right? Because you
Yeah,
are
you're
in
like
South
two
Florida
hours
as well.
north of me, and
Yeah.
it's raining over here, and you guys have the sun, so not fair.
Crazy. Crazy, crazy. Well, for a lot of the audience who may not know who you are, do you mind sharing your background and just share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, so I'm Jamie Seneca. I'm here in South Florida. I background real quick on me. I was a solo agent, a team lead, and then I recently opened up my own brokerage. And my passion is just getting agents into production quickly and figuring out how we can reduce the gap from waiting to get your next commission. Because I've been there, I've done that, and that's just where I put my passion with growing reset real estate now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely so. And that's something that we talk about a lot, right? Is like your first paycheck is behind quite a few days of you actually doing the work. So like doing the work is going to take a little while for you to get the result. Then you start working with someone that takes another little while before that transaction is actually realized into the way of compensation for you. And so minimizing that gap is so important because there's so many people who can't hang on in that period of time.
Mhm.
Or maybe they're already full-time into real estate and then they're having these big gaps in between commissions, and that's also equally as unpleasant. So with that being said, we talked about kind of, CRM hygiene and what's the best way to organize your database so that you can go in there and find people who are willing to transact, understand where people are in the funnel so you know which part of your database to, consistently speak with. Can you kind of walk us through your thoughts on the best practices on how you approach that?
Yes, for sure. So, pretty much your database is like the protection of yourself. Your efforts are what you put into it 90 days ago. So, when we were building out our database, it was my biggest passion project of like, okay, how can we make our systems work for ourselves and work for our agents? And every agent that I have spoken to, a lot of times it's overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. They're not sure how often they should actually be following up with the opportunities that they've spoken to. So what we've done in our database is we just like reverse engineered it and made it so simple to follow that an agent just has to plug into their CRM, follow our smart list every day. For example, like let's say you talked to a buyer yesterday and they said they want to purchase in 3 months. You stage them as an A and you're supposed to contact them every 7 days. If you don't reach out to them every 7 days, they end up on your smart list. So it's constantly in your face of like, oh my gosh, you need to speak with this client. And that's where we got really dialed in of really breaking down, okay, what does a buyer look like in an A status, a B status, a C status, a D status? When are they purchasing? And then what does that follow-up cadence need to look like to make sure we're not dropping the ball? Because what I've seen is that, the majority of business that agents lose is because they're not following up enough. So
Right.
we
Yeah.
protect them from themselves through
Can
our
you walk us
systems.
through your kind of your legend of A status, B, C, and D so we understand like how you're fitting people into those buckets?
Yeah, so anyone that tells you that they're looking to buy, let's say in 6 months, cut that in half. So that needs to be the one mental barrier that any agent who's prospecting for business really just needs to hold true to that. Always cut their time in half. If they tell you they're a year, they're more than likely 6 months, if not 3 months out. So our A statuses, we classify them for any buyer or seller who's looking to purchase within 1 to 3 months. And then that follow-up cadence is we reach out to them every 7 days. Our B is they're declaring that they want to purchase within 3 to 6 months, and that follow-up cadence is every 14 days. Our C's are 6 to 12. That's every 30 days of some type of communication. And then D's are like 12-month plus, and that's every 90 days of communication.
Okay, perfect. All right. So,
Mhm.
um, you said that you kind of have like a cadence in terms of like, hey, if someone's on an A, then you are going to say it's a contact point once every 7 days. Do
Yeah.
you have those guidelines kind of set out for the other tiers as well too?
Yeah, so we actually built SmartList into our CRM, and all of that happens automatically. So our agents don't have to think about it. So yeah, all of the cadence is built into the CRM. So if let's say I called buyer Bob today, he's going to show up on the SmartList 7 days later, letting me know that I need to reach out to him again so I don't drop the ball.
Yeah, for sure. And utilizing the CRM to organize that pipeline of a database is so important. Like one of the things
Yeah.
that we used to do was every customer inside of your database has a follow-up task, no matter where they are in the arc, because it creates that level of organization. Like if you don't see it, you will lose them, right?
Yeah.
And all the CRMs have a very effective way for you to essentially like create that follow-up task. And we use
Mhm.
follow-up boss pretty heavily. And what we would do is every morning you would wake up and you would see this report and this pipeline of all of your follow-up tasks for the day. And some of them may be something as simple as just checking in on the file, just
Yeah.
making sure your action plans are working and that they are working in the ways that we are intending them to work. And some of them are the deeper conversations and making the phone calls and doing the purposeful text messages,
Mhm.
regardless of what that touch base point is, just having that reminder each and every day. Hey, this is my report. I do not complete my day unless I wrap up all these tasks throughout the day. Some days they'll be spread out throughout the day. Some days we'll be able to bang them out during the morning hours or during set times in the day. But the mission is let's complete that report before day concludes.
Yeah, that's what we
Okay.
call win the day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
win
Yeah,
the day. I
win the
love
day.
it.
win the
That's
I
great.
love it.
day.
Amy, I saw in the chat someone was asking what type of CRM do you use?
So I actually use Follow Up Boss right now. We're in transition over to SureSend, but we're using Follow Up Boss predominantly, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
we really enjoy that as well too. We make that available for our agents here at LPT Realty. But yeah, that's great. Okay, so we are going to talk about now. You've got that set up where, okay, I understand what's happening in my database. There's the A, B, C through D, and then I have a preset kind of amount of touch points depending on which category they are in. What
Yep.
conversations are you talking about to your A person versus your D person, the person furthest away from the transaction, and then your person closest to the transaction?
I think it really just depends on where you left it off last, right? Your A's are looking to transact in the next 1 to 3 months. So those conversations are going to be a little bit lower funnel conversations. You're probably out showing them property. Maybe you're looking for off-market opportunities where a week went by, there's houses that are not available that fit their criteria. So you're like, shoot, what do I do, right? Like I don't have anything to show you. Let me find something to show you. Those are kind of the conversations that we're having with our A's and our B's. When you're further down the funnel, what we've been doing, which has been highly, highly effective, A lot of agents have a mental roadblock of like, if I follow up 2 months, they're not ready. They're not ready to purchase within a year or 6 months, whatever that case might be. We started doing donations to different charities. And we've been blasting that out on social. And then we're also following up with the leads in our database, not only talking real estate, which I think is important, like normalizing yourself, and then also reaching out and saying, hey, we're doing this month, we're actually doing a woman in distress pickup at the office. So our agents have been calling their sphere, they've been calling their leads and discussing that as well. So they're bringing some humility, if that's the word, to the process as well. Yeah.
And that's what's crazy, right? Because we oftentimes think it's like, oh, the clients that are most immediate, they tend to be the most challenging. But when we're talking about like nurturing, the further away clients are actually the most difficult ones because we now got to be very purposeful with the messaging that we are putting out there to ensure that we are still captivating that client and captivating that audience. So that way, when they are ultimately ready and they've moved up that sales funnel and they're at that, level A tier,
Mhm.
that they are going to engage us. And these
Yeah.
are individuals that, going back to like the leads game and the lead space, we oftentimes say it's like, oh, we only want to deal with that hot lead. We only want to deal with that lead that's all the way down at the bottom of the funnel. The problem with those leads is that you are at the highest risk of that person not ultimately utilizing you because the same way they found you today, they may be shopping other agents and they may be in front of other agents during that process. Versus the D customer, you are now given this maximum runway to build that rapport, to build that relationship, to be that premier agent in the eyes of that consumer. And it increases that likelihood that, you increase that runway for you to be able to ultimately convert them at the end. And now you're not at risk of this customer now reaching out to another agent. But again, it's creating that very much purposeful approach to what is that audience seeing? What am I showing my audience? And one of the things, and we actually had Sam on a few weeks ago where he was talking through this concept of reframing your avatar. What does the population see of you? Do they see, Lewis, he goes to the gym and that's all he does? Or do they see me as a realtor, but I like these other things as well? So it's again, what is that avatar that the consumer is seeing of you in their eyes?
Yeah, that is so important. And honestly, what we see in our database is the leads who are longer nurtures are the ones that we're missing opportunities on. Like we did a database audit the other day. I wanted to throw up for lack of a better word, but I had 200 missed opportunities that we physically confirmed with them on the phone. Average price point was around 500,000. That's about 80 million in sales volume that they purchased with somebody outside of our organization. Now, I'm not saying our systems are broken, but sometimes it's hard to follow up or agents lose hope in the C's and the D's when they're the ones that are actually the most serious and will transact, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
How often do you kind of scrub your database to understand like what missed opportunities or what adjustments need to be made?
So we're actually looking at that daily. We do have a system in place that helps. Not only do we have our smart list for the agents, which is important, but we also have nudges and accountability in there as well. Because what was really important to me was like, one, we all want to produce. We're in a business where we don't make any money unless we sell. So what placeholders can we put in our CRM to work for us to make sure that we're not dropping the ball? So like every 3 days, if an agent in our office is outside of their follow-up boss cadence, we're nudging them every 3 days and we're letting them know, hey, agent A, you're outside of your follow-up boss or outside of your follow-up cadence. Please make sure you reach out to this lead so you don't lose out on this opportunity. That's been very helpful as well, just extra placeholders for accountability.
Thinking about, the market changing, so,
Mhm.
during the height of the pandemic, obviously houses were going under multiple offer scenario, almost every single one of them. And it was, buyers were losing out on properties all of the time. And so
Mhm.
much different environment than what we see now where houses, are sitting much longer. And generally you're having single negotiations, meaning you're not doing the multiple offer thing. It's generally just between you and the seller. What do you focus on from that period of time to this period of time? Like what does that look like in terms of strategies for, your A client versus your D client? Because the environment is different. So are you doing things differently? Like how does that look?
So we're not reinventing the wheel. If anything, we need to reach out more and we need to have more contact attempts and we need to show our value. And in our market, South Florida, it's highly, highly competitive. Every mother, brother, sister, cousin has their license, right? So it's like, what are we doing to show that we're the trusted professional in the community and to get them to want to work with us? I personally hated the COVID market. I was in it. Everything sold quick. It was easy money, but you need to go back to basics and you need to learn the proper follow-up that actually holds true in any market, whether it's up or down.
Yeah, yeah. And you
Yeah.
were also talking about some of these accountability metrics. Like what are some of those accountability metrics that, the audience and our agents can, kind of evaluate on their own accord, without
Yeah,
somebody
so
holding them.
we incorporated Batter into our CRM. So the accountability piece of that is just nudges on auto because we were actually doing that manually in the beginning, and that's just way too much to constantly like be on top of agents' databases. So once they fall out of compliance, we call it. So it's 3 days after. We're giving grace for 3 days. So let's just use an A, for example. They have every 7 days they should be contacted because that's how we've proven and with our roadmap that if you maintain that consistency, the likelihood of them closing with you is very high. So if they fall out of the 3 day window, they're getting nudged automatically by Batter. And they're saying, "Hey, you're following out of your follow-up boss cadence." So that's been very instrumental in helping with accountability. Every 3 days, and then after the sixth day, they get pulled to what's called a pulled opportunities pond. And then that's where our ISA jumps in and tries to revive them so we don't lose the opportunity.
From your agents that are most productive or doing the most amount of transactions, what would you say the difference is between that person relative to kind of like what we're talking about? What's the
Mhm.
difference between that person, maybe someone who wants to do more production, but they're struggling?
Output, 100%. Calls and meaningful conversations. It's like a direct line in the sand. If you're putting in the output, like in our world, let's just use 100 calls as an example. 100 calls should get you seven meaningful conversations. That's a call over 2 minutes where you've discussed buying, selling, investing in real estate, enough to create a search for them, knowing their location, their price, their motivation, and where they want to purchase, right? So 100 calls should turn to seven meaningful conversations. Out of that, 12 meaningful conversations should create one appointment, and four appointments should turn into a closing. So when we've looked at agents who have done well, and those that are struggling based on the goals that they have set for themselves, 100% hands down, it's conversations and meaningful conversations. It's
And it
the
sounds like
output.
consistency is a big part,
Consistency,
right?
100%.
So,
Yes,
and
yes.
and I love how you have that, metric where it's like, hey, if you're, 3 days of grace, if not, then you fall into out of compliance, let's call
Yeah.
it. What are some of the mindset shifts that an agent needs to have, or like the mindset factors in order for them to keep this level of consistency? Because we are in a very up and down, very volatile type of business. We have
Mhm.
personal lives, we have our business life. Like, how do you maintain those consistent activities to ensure that we are doing the proper outbound functions to reap those results?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've seen with not only myself, but with agents is you need to prove to yourself what's possible. Because if you judge the process, if you judge what the outcome is going to be, you don't know, right? But the moment you put in the reps and a trick that I worked for me, right? Like let's just say your average commission is $10,000, right? Are you my next $10,000? I'm picking up the phone and I'm dialing for dollars until I can get my next closing. That I feel has been really helpful, but also understanding that, like you said, we said at the beginning, your efforts today was from 90 days ago. So just put in the work, put in the reps, follow up. And once you start to see the results happen, is I think when the mindset shift also assists because, excuse me, then you believe in yourself, right? That's the hardest part in this business. One deal goes down and then you think it's over.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that is 100% because that's the piece that I think a lot of people discount is that we are in a high rejection business.
Yes.
So not only are you dealing with people who are like, hey, leave me alone, I don't want to hear what you've got to say, or I don't know what you've got that aspect of it. You've got people who have said, I want to work with you, and then something happens that stops that process midstream. Bad inspection, failed financing, bad appraisal, whatever, something that
Mhm.
blows that piece up. And so it is very easy to be discouraged in this business when you're facing this level of rejection on the front side and then dealing with that turmoil through the transaction piece. So that mindset is super important. So what are some of the tactics that you use to try to stay on that positive note? Like, I know we've got to put our head down and do the work, and then we know we're going to take 90 days before we get to realize the gains of that work. But what do you do when you're hitting those obstacles? Do you have like some go-to methods that you use to help soften that out to keep you motivated?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's built keeping that pipeline full. The quicker, the more often that you have business, it's not going to hurt as hard, right? Like if you're working 10 clients and one of them falls apart, it doesn't hurt as hard. So building that pipeline is what's important. Dealing with the obstacles, role play, showing up to trainings like this, just really getting borrowed belief from the community, from the resources that you have access to, constantly developing yourself every single day, and then also taking those challenges as a win. Right? Like some of the hardest transactions that I personally have ever been in were my biggest learning moments that got me to where I am at every phase of where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
Right? And just understanding that it's all part of the process. It just hurts harder when we don't have a full pipeline.
I love that. And that's another way to look at it, right? Like this obstacle gets in front of us. Let's treat it as a learning
Yeah.
experience. It's just feeling like it's defeat. One of the characteristics that we need to have as agents is resilience. I mean, that is probably one of the biggest characteristics to overcome the challenges that face us in this business, because yes, it does hurt. It does hurt when we have been working very hard with this customer and we've been nurturing them for months, and we finally got them under contract after multiple tours, and we get to the finish line and something happens that causes the file to fall apart. And we have to have that resilience around us, and then also having systems around us as well. Because when those moments do occur, what then becomes our fallback when we are feeling that unmotivation is we got to get back to a system. We got to get back to a plan to recreate that energy and recreate that fuel. And also, it allows us to continuously keep that pipeline healthy, because to your point, the more customers we are working with, it hurts less when you do lose that one, when you have 100 of them, versus if you only have one, you lose all of it. Making sure that the systems are in play to continuously create awareness, not falling into these peaks and valley type of dynamic where, you are hustling to get the business and then you stop focusing on generating the business and you're only focused on converting the business that you've created. Like, you have to have every single step of the equation on a system and ready to rock and roll at all times.
So
Mhm.
we know that you're kind of basing this whole thing off of your database. What's the initial setup? Hey, I've kind of got maybe I'm not using a CRM, or I've got a CRM and it's not necessarily organized. What would you say for the person who says, okay, I see the value of this and having people understand where they are? How do they go about setting that up? What's that first kind of initial step?
I think the first thing is making sure you have a CRM,
Yeah.
right? Like, and you guys supply a CRM, just making sure you're actually utilizing it and logging in and setting that up. Just creating the workflows. Reach out to me if you need help with setting up a CRM. Like we literally, it took us probably a year, I want to say, to like really understand like how we wanted to build the foundation of what this needs to look like to avoid as many gaps in the follow-up process as possible. That challenges a lot of people because a lot of people don't even know where to start. So to start with the CRM, start with signing in first, start with something as simple as, even if you have 10 people in your database, go through today and stage them as an A, B, C, D, and just take that step to start organizing what you want your follow-up cadence to look like. I think that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
really,
And,
yeah,
and I love how you said, like, even if you have 10 people, right? Because some of
yeah,
us fall in that trap, like, oh, I don't feel like I have enough customers to even justify a
Yeah.
CRM. And that's not true. Like, it's
mm,
not going to be perfect from day one. Even if you have one customer, which again, all of your contacts on your phone should be inside of your database and
yeah,
inside of the CRM with some type of touches. So it shouldn't just be one. But let's say you only have one person out there, there is still a build out that's going to take place. And it's easier to build it out when you have you know, less in there, so that way you can start learning from the lessons and start tweaking it and perfecting it, because that is going to happen. Like, don't wait for it to be perfect before you hit play. Don't wait till you have a certain size before you hit play. This is going
hmm
to be your lifeline. This is the heart and soul of your business, is this database and how it's organized, and maintaining that hygiene is so important. Like, Another big challenge is, letting it get off its heels, like letting it go for too long without making sure that it's organized and the details are there, the notes are there. You got to stay on top of it at any given time, because then it becomes useless. If you just have names in there and it's not organized and it's not notated and it's not appropriately used, then for all intents, it's just names in a database. Like, it's not gonna produce the fruits of the labor.
Yeah, that's right. And other thing that I think is important, as people start to take this on, it can feel overwhelming, right? Because it's the starting point is not clear. But I guess you would just say, hey, put everybody inside of your CRM, and then over the course of however long it takes you to do that, you're going to say, hey, I know what this person just bought a house. This person, I don't really know where they are. Like, understand where people are. So even if you haven't spoke with them in a while, you're unsure their status in the cycle, you can tag that something. And then that becomes the list. Hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to 5 people a day that are the A's. I'm going to talk to 15 people that are the B's. I'm going to talk to this group of people who I'm not sure their status, so that I can fill it in. Like, you can organize your process. And so that way, each day you're working towards this one day, very clean CRM where you know where everybody is for a decent level. And again, the value of that is that it allows you to control how much time you're putting towards each part of that funnel. If you are starting to grow that bottom funnel enough, then you're going to be like, okay, hey, I'm going to have all this business, I'm going to have all this closing. I know how to kind of prepare my time during that period of time. If that starts to shrink and the top of the funnel is growing, you're like, okay, I need to start working on the process of pulling people down. Like, it gives you the roadmap on how to be, efficient. And again, there's a lot of people who don't do that. They don't understand that there's value in that. And so they don't get the benefits of that, organized approach.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you guys for joining us today. I know we're creeping right on time. Time flies when you're having fun, right, Jamie? Do you have any final words for the audience before we wrap up today's Real Estate First?
Thank you guys for having me. If there's anything that I can do for anyone in the real estate space, don't ever hesitate to reach out. If you're struggling with CRMs or building a predictable pipeline, I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Guys, we will see you on Motivational Monday. We'll be back in studio at LPT headquarters this Monday, talking through some of the awards that we've recently seen and some of the new programs we have on the horizon. So have a blessed and prosperous weekend, and we will see you Monday.